Hello everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Kinsey. I am not a student teacher anymore. I will be graduating this week, which is so exciting, but I did promise you guys to give you these videos to finish off my edTPA series. If you are new here, please subscribe. I love talking about the edTPA, student teaching. I'm going to take you along my whole journey with me. If you are not new here, thank you so much for coming back, and also go ahead and check out my Instagram because I do post there pretty often and I would love to have you join me on there. But let's get into why you are here. edTPA Task 1. So I want to start out this video. First of all, I am getting over a cold. I'm very sorry if you can tell in my voice, but it is what it is. I want to start off by saying that this video is going to be all about task 1. Go ahead and look forward to task 2 and task 3 videos because I feel like edTPA is too much to talk about in just one video. I really wanted to break it up for you guys so it would be a little less daunting to learn about all of these things. So on my Instagram as well as my YouTube, I asked you guys if you had any general questions about the edTPA that you would want me to answer, and I tried my best to kind of separate those into the different videos that they matched best. So I have about 3 questions that I'm going to incorporate into this video for you all, and if you have any more, go ahead and leave them down below. I'll be happy to answer them or include them in my next few videos. So the first question that I really wanted to answer for you guys was, where do I even start? I think that's a fabulous question, and that was a question that I would have asked myself when I was first starting. This whole process is so big and so scary. Starting is the hardest part. So I'm gonna give you a concrete place to start. Your edTPA binder. This is your holy grail. This is going to save you more times than you even know. If you are new here, I did already post a video all about my edTPA binder. I will link it up above and down below. That was the first part of my edTPA series. So I'm not gonna go over my binder with you in this video just because that would take too much time, and I really went in depth with you on that first video. So go check that out if you are interested in starting your edTPA binder. Some people, I think, are people who they kind of feel like they can think on their feet a little bit more. They don't need notes or anything organizational to help them. And if you can get through the edTPA without it, congrats. This is actually something that my professors required of us. They just said that, you know, most people will struggle to put all the pieces together if it's not all in one place. So I would highly recommend creating a binder or a folder where all of this information can be stored, and that way you have everything printed and you can take notes and everything like that. So that's something concrete that you can do to start the process of edTPA. It's a lot, but you can do it. The next thing that you want to think about is the big picture, which can be so hard for some people, and it really took some practice for me to be able to see the big picture. But that's what edTPA is all about. It's a big picture. You can't do it task by task. You have to know what you're doing for everything before you even start. So having your big picture, what your lesson's going to be like, what types of things do you need to submit for each task, and how can your lesson fulfill those? So that's where these type of videos can be really, really helpful to watch before you even start thinking about anything, because knowing what you have to turn in and what's required of each task can be really, really helpful for you in knowing what content you're going to incorporate into your lessons and therefore every single task. So talking about the lesson, I did have a question. Somebody asked, what type of lesson should I teach? That is a super hard question to answer, if I'm being honest. It's completely up to you. I know that's not helpful. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of general help. The hard part about edTPA with your teachers and your friends and even stuff like this, edTPA is not meant to be talked about. I am not meant to be telling you what you should do for your lesson, how you should answer these questions, if your answers are good or bad, if your lessons are good or bad. it's just like an edTPA thing where they're very, very, very specific about the way you can write things and how much help you can get. So that's where things like your handbook and the rubrics are going to come in handy, because you're going to have to answer a lot of your own questions, unfortunately. But what I can offer you is a little bit of guidance about the logistics and kind of give you a little bit of information about what I did. So I am graduating with an early childhood education major or bachelor's degree. And so there are edTPAs for early childhood, and then there's also an edTPA for elementary education, which is a completely different major and degree. So definitely know which one you're taking based on your major and what you're graduating with, because that will change a lot. Early childhood is required to do a literacy lesson with an interdisciplinary context, and elementary is required to do a math lesson with an interdisciplinary context. So very, very different things. For me, obviously, I did literacy, so that means that I was teaching a literacy standard. If you have to do math, unfortunately, I can't give you a lot of information on that, but math would be a very similar thing. You're doing a math standard, and then an interdisciplinary context means that you are incorporating some other subject or standard into that. So for literacy, I did a science interdisciplinary context, so I used a science text, and I kind of incorporated ideas that they were learning in their science subject into my lesson. But the whole of my lesson was all about the literacy standard, not science standards. Same thing would go for math. So you would do a math standard, you would incorporate a literacy text or maybe a science concept, and you would incorporate those together. So make sure you know the requirements of your lesson before you start planning your lesson based on your major, and make sure you think about that interdisciplinary context, because that's really, really crucial for the lesson plans that they are looking for in the edTPA. Another big thing that they're looking for is for each of your lessons to build on each other. If you are new to edTPA, you are required to plan 3 to 5 lessons for your class, and those lessons are meant to be building blocks on each other. So for example, you would do maybe a literacy lesson about CVC words, I don't know, and you would start with what consonants they know on day 1, the vowels that they know on day 2, and then putting them together on day 3. So that's a bad example, don't do that, but you get what I'm saying. You need different parts to get to a final thing, and those are going to be each of your lessons. So building blocks, make sure you think about that as you're planning your lesson. And that is all. Those are the 3 big things: knowing the requirements, making sure you have that interdisciplinary piece, and then making sure you have that building blocks type of lesson plans where they're all meshing together. All right, so really quickly, I want to give you a little bit of an overview of the submission requirements for task 1. Knowing everything you're going to have to submit and turn in at the end of this is really important before starting. Like I said, I would really recommend knowing the requirements for all 3 tasks before beginning any of it, because they're all coinciding with each other. They all have something to do with another piece. So knowing all the pieces can really help everything to flow a little bit easier, where like your lesson plans will have things in it that will be useful for task 3. I'm just saying. So maybe watch all 3 of my videos and then start. For task 1, there are 5 different parts that you are required to submit. Part 1, or Part A as they call it, is the context for learning information. So this is similar to the commentary. Usually you will have done this with your professors. If not, it's pretty straightforward. It's really just, I believe, 4 pages of information about your school and your class that you will be teaching in. Again, remember, no identifiers of your school, your district, your teacher, yourself, or your students. Nothing to identify you, but very general information about maybe the programs you're using, the demographics of your school and your class, the IEPs, 504 plans, ELL students, all of that stuff. Very general information. You should be able to answer these questions pretty easily. So take your time, do this one first, because it's stuff you already know. Super simple. Part B is the lesson plans. So these again are going to be pretty straightforward. Once you know what you're doing, the lesson plans are just kind of like a nuisance to write out everything. So make a general plan of what you want to teach, the activities you want to do, the assessments you want to have, and then put it into the formal format for for your lesson plans. Again, these are going to be all in one document when you submit them, and you should submit everything in a PDF format so that it doesn't mess anything up if it's in a Word document. It's just going to be one right after the other. Make sure they're labeled Learning Segment 1 or Learning Experience 1, Day 1, and so forth. Part C is the instructional materials. So these are going to be all the things that you are using for your lessons. So things like PowerPoints, books, worksheets, whatever. Again, I did mine all virtually, so this was pretty straightforward to put all my instructional materials in because it was all just screenshots of websites and things that I was using. In person, it might be a little bit more difficult where you have to insert pictures or whatever. So just make sure you get everything and label those by each learning experience in one document PDF. Then we have the assessments. So blank copies of the assessments that you are giving. This can be the exit tickets or the worksheets that you choose to be assessments, and then your common assessment, the big one that you really want your edTPA scorers to see. So that is going to be kind of what is going to be in assessments. Again, one document, all in PDF form. The last part for task 1 is part E, the planning commentary. This is the biggest, most time-consuming piece of this task. It is going to be, I believe, 9 pages of information that you are having to type. These questions are very complex. They require a lot of thought and organization in your writing, and then just making sure you answer the questions professionally and thoroughly. If you would like me to go through all 3 of the commentaries and the prompts, let me know. I could definitely do that. I didn't think about that until like right now. So let me know down below if you'd be interested in going through all of the prompts and kind of what each one is talking about. Again, I'm uploading these after most edTPA time periods, but I do know that a lot of people take them later, or a lot of people will take them in the fall. So let me know where you're at with your edTPA. That would be interesting. So that was a quick overview of what you are submitting for task 1. Like I said, I didn't go into super detail, but just making sure that everything's kind of in line, labeled correctly, in the right font, in PDF formats. All of that is really important for the edTPA. Truthfully, the most thought for edTPA goes into the logistics and all of that rather than the actual writing. So the last question I'm going to answer for this video is, how do I avoid procrastinating? That's a hard one. edTPA was the hardest for me because of the long period and the overwhelming amount of requirements. Procrastination is going to be inevitable. Give yourself breaks. Don't expect too much of yourself. But the biggest thing I can tell you is give yourself deadlines. If you watched my edTPA prep video, the first episode in this series, you will see in my binder, I gave myself calendars, and I gave myself a lot of different deadlines, really small deadlines, having each lesson plan done, when to have each thing uploaded, or, you know, whatever. And that is kind of where all of this went, so that it was very specific. I could check things off. I could mark this up. That was really helpful for me to give myself deadlines. My school did provide deadlines for me. A small grade for my class went into submitting pieces of my edTPA for them to look over, which they did not because they were not allowed to, but making sure that it was complete. That way I had like a deadline. I think that was really helpful from them. And if your school does not do that, do it for yourself. My other suggestion is one prompt at a time. Do not sit down and say, I'm going to do all of task 1 right now. That's unreasonable. You have 7 weeks to do this test for a reason. It takes 2 weeks for each task, basically. There's a lot that goes into it. So don't expect yourself to finish it in one sitting. Take breaks. Literally do it one question at a time. All right, you guys. So that was episode 2 of my edTPA series, all about task 1, the planning task. So if you have any more questions about the planning task or any of the other tasks, let me know down below. I will answer any of the task 1 questions that I can. And if you have questions about the other tasks, leave them down below and I will include those in my next videos that I will film soon. I hope this was helpful for you guys. I know edTPA is really stressful and I hope that I can bring a little bit of ease for you now that I finished it successfully. Don't forget to follow my Instagram. I ask you guys questions on there all the time and I love to hang out with you all on there. Consider subscribing to see my next 2 edTPA videos as well as all of the adventures as I graduate and become a real teacher. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for clicking on this video, and I will see you in my next one. Just keep teaching.